What to expect from Gordon Hayward in the next season. Jazz franchise getting an awful lot of respect. College football coaches, what are you really doing? And considering the news of the last year, shouldn't we be following this? Some NBA news and something I love in the NFL. It's all up on today's edition of Tip Off. Is the internet just the greatest time suck void of all time? I mean, my son's Kindle, he can't remember his password, so I am literally spending an hour trying to find it? Really? George Takei releases a new video, and next thing I know, I'm watching old Star Trek on YouTube because this guy's 76 years old and got a musical out, and somehow I'm following it? I've read 3 articles about the New Jersey Nets today. The New Jersey Nets, do I really care about the New Jersey Nets? It is a time suck as I prepare for this every day, but I love it. Hope you're great. And oh my gosh, if I delve into the NFL's all 22 films, I wonder if we'll get it. There's no NBA equivalent. Synergy is probably the closest, but the NFL has released, for those of you that are big NFL fans like myself, I just love the game of football. And I think I've told this story that when I was in Seattle, I sat at every Seahawk game between former NFL quarterback Hugh Millen and former NFL linebacker Dave Wyman. Wyman's former Stanford guy, one of my favorite people. And I love Hugh, too. I didn't mean that. And these guys are just brilliant NFL people. And so I just sat next to them and learned just so much about the game. And now the NFL, so I just became a huge fan of the game of football. I mean, I love it. Some of the analytical stuff I've done since relates to that. But and I don't have as much time to it. Calling NFL would just be incredible. Just the passion of that game and that Sunday and the rev up to the game. We for the first 2 years that we lived in Salt Lake, we were season ticket holders. Still the Seahawks. My wife was worked for them at the time, and we stayed season ticket holders until just finally it became too expensive, frankly, to fly 4 people to Seattle to go to a football game. If we need to do it, we'll do it once a year, and that's become too expensive. So, but it has been. I just love it. So anyway, the all 22 film is just going to be like. If I ever suck into that, it could be over. Hope you're all well. One note. This is a funny one for me because I always get this. I love your stuff, but I hate when you talk politics. And I actually try not to talk politics very much, but I just wanted to share with everyone. I'm a huge Vanity Fair reader, big fan of it, and it's probably one of the best magazines. Vanity Fair this month is as good. It's got Katie Holmes Scientology stuff. It's got Michael Lewis, who's the best writer we have in America right now. He wrote Moneyball. He wrote an incredible, incredible book on The Big Short about the economic crash. His book Boomerang is terrific. His book Liar's Poker originally is great. I mean, he's really recognized this. Well, it sounds like he spent like 6 months with Obama, and it's not about. I mean, it's a little bit about Obama, obviously, but it's really about how policy gets done and how the White House works and the pressure of being the president, what the job's like. And anyway, it's just a really big, huge view inside of this world that we don't know, like what Air Force One is like. And regardless if you like him or not, this is the best writer of our era with the president. I don't care who the president is. You should read it. So that's in Vanity Fair. It's out there. I'll probably post it on my David Locke Facebook as well for you. I always find funny. This is going to be a very philosophical tip-off, I think. What I always find funny is if we're talking, this isn't always the case, but if we're talking Jazz, Utes, Cougars, Aggies, and I make a comment that's something that you don't disagree with or that you don't agree with, the chances are you'll probably run it through your filter, decide whether you agree with it or not, might say, well, there's some insight to that. That's interesting. Move on. In politics, if someone says something that you don't agree with, you just hate them for it, and you don't want to hear it from them, and not you, but just one, and I don't like him. Gosh, I wish we could flip those. If we disagreed about how BYU should run their football program, I wish we could just be that quick and just disagree and move on because it's really unimportant. And I really wish that the other way we all would just discuss things, right? I mean, it's not kind of funny how that works? Anyway. I got a fabulous question. I love it when I get great questions at dlock at utahjazz.com. I got a great question, which I will turn into my probably question of the day as well. Will Gordon Hayward be more the focal point of the offense, especially pick and roll, more opportunities to create, etc.? And I'm going to get into more detail on that in the today in my blog post at We Are Utah Jazz. But I loved the question. I mean, it's a really huge. Here we've got Mo Williams, and here we've got Al Jefferson, and really Gordon Hayward was drafted as much as anything because the Jazz believe that he made everyone around him better. I will go back to you in the preparing for that draft, talking with Walt Perrin and Dave Fredman and some of the Jazz scouts, and I was running through players and my viewpoint on them, and I like some weird players in that draft. If you recall, I think that was the previous. I'm trying to remember, but anyway, we were talking Luke Babbitt versus Gordon and this, and there were other guys, and the Jazz scouts, and I didn't get Gordon. I think if you may recall, I didn't undersee necessarily the value. My point kept being he doesn't have an NBA skill. And finally, Walt said to me, he makes everyone around him better. And I'm like, that's not really an NBA skill. And he's like, no, it really is. And he was comparing him, and I don't want to say whom, to other players. I'm like, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He's like, this is an NBA skill. And I was looking, can he shoot? And so that's their large premise on Gordon. I mean, very much they ironically thought he was going to complement Darren very well and let Darren play off the ball more. So will the offense go through Gordon a bit more this year than it has in the past? Well, if Marvin starts at 3 and Gordon's at 2, and Mo's a pretty good offensive player, you might have Gordon do some more things. You might have Burks do some of those things too at the 2, with Foy at the 1, and then you play kind of an old school Paul Westphal 2-guard front. The thing on Gordon, though, if you go back and look at last year's numbers, on the pick and roll, he struggled. He turned the ball over when he was this doesn't count assists, but then just when he was finishing, when he was bringing the ball off the pick and roll and he was going to the basket, he turned the ball over 30% of the time, and he only scored personally 28% of the time. Now, he got a bunch of assists, and he did a lot of cool things with favors on it, and it's probably worth watching. That's where Synergy has some number flaws in here that it just talks about him as the ball handler. But that he's got to get better if you're going to run the pick and roll with Gordon, which we really did go away from last year. He only ran the pick and roll as the ball handler, or finished with him as the ball handler 89 times last year. And he's got to improve on some of those kind of things for himself offensively, because then he's a bigger threat. It opens up things for other players. Now, that may be just part of Gordon's development, more time, be able to get something, get that experience. But I think that's a great question of, where's Gordon's next step? We saw Gordon really explode, right? I mean, he had that second half of the season that we're all certainly hoping he's going to be the level. And if he can set that second half of the season as he was in the first half of the season, or for this entire season, that's his big year 2 to year 3 jump, and we have to find a way for that to happen. For those who don't recall what that was, Gordon really clicked. A huge jump last year. He went from 6 points a game to 11 points a game. But if you look at his February, really his March and April, the last 31 games, the last half of the season, he averages around 14 points a game. Shoots nearly 50% in that stretch, shoots in the range of 44% from 3. He was really quite fabulous from 3 to close the year, if you recall, as part of that drive, and partially because Devin started playing better, and I think that opened up a lot of things for Gordon. He shot 49% from 3 in April in the final 13 games of the season, then had a terrible playoffs. But so it will be very curious to see where he goes with that. His assist numbers went up, his rebounding numbers kind of stayed plateaued in that area. So I don't know. I think it's a great question. I loved the question, and I don't know how he gets all of those opportunities with all the new guys we've had, but maybe these new guys are hybrid players, and that allows Gordon to have the ball more and do some more things of that nature. So great question. Thank you very much. Did I say who that came in from? That was from Kirk Nielsen. You can send me your questions as well at dlock@utahjazz.com. Makes it a lot better if I'm interacting to something that you did. I just kind of realized that this is probably does not have a YouTube video today, and I'm not going to the 10-minute mark. I'm not going to start re-recording. I have kind of this is my a few NBA notes. Warriors say Andrew Bogut's supposed to be ready by opening day. Ronnie Price signed with Portland. Did I miss that? I did. I think it's no threat to us, but I think it's great. I love Ronnie, and the fact he gets paid for another year is just terrific. We'll have a longer conversation. I want to talk some about Dallas and some of these. There's kind of an interesting thing going on in the NBA about these there's three types of teams right now in the NBA, and I'm gonna wait to talk about that on another day when we have some more times. But the three teams are the superstar laden teams, the depth teams with a single star, and then there's the depth teams, and I kind of think we're the third. I'll talk about that. I wanted to share. This might be my brain thinking too much. This is probably where it's better on a podcast rather than talk show, though this would probably be a pretty controversial talk show. And I just wanted to share with you a thought. It doesn't really fit the Jazz NBA brand, but just, and I'm hesitant. Yes, I am hesitant right now. So we just went through an entire offseason with the Penn State scandal. And to me, the essence of the Penn State scandal is that a college football program garnered so much power that everyone around them just nodded and accepted what they were doing at all times. And didn't ever question. There were no double checks. There was no system line. There was, right? I mean, isn't that what happened at Penn State? I mean, we had a very nasty, awful human being who was allowed to do this inside of a system that simply had nobody double checking, had no system, nobody. It was so big that no one could touch it. Within like 1 month of Sandusky getting locked away, we have football coaches universally across the country cutting off all exposure to their football programs. And Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, all cutting off every aspect. You can't report on injuries. You can't report on anything you see at practice. You basically can't report on our program. And they're doing it in the name of competitive advantage. And once again, because of the fact that everybody is so embedded in I'm just not saying this well enough, but that everybody is so ingrained in just their program winning at all costs, we just go along with it. And the fan base basically says, well, that's okay because it's in competitive advantage. I mean, to some extent, Joe Paterno allowed Jerry Sandusky to abuse kids because he was winning. That's how jacked up this is. And I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian are doing the same thing, but frankly, Brian Kelly had a kid up on a podium in a windy storm at Notre Dame, and he fell off and didn't he die? And he got away with it. So I just get terrified in all aspects of our society, frankly, whenever we just cut off the media and their ability to report on a team. So, like, what happens if stuff's going on and you start, like, if Lane Kiffin can suspend a reporter for 3 weeks, what happens if actually there's real problems, not a kicker needing an ACL? What happens if there are real problems going on there and somebody reports about it? We should be able to, guys should be running programs at a level in which scrutiny is not a problem. Maybe I'm totally off on this. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I like the feedback on this. But I really did not say this well, and frankly, if I was doing a talk show, I would have written it out and it'd be, hammered on it for 3 hours all day to try to make sure it was perfect by the time I came out with it, and I didn't do any of that. So I'm more holding a conversation with you rather than, as I used to when I did a talk show, sometimes get on top of my pulpit and preach, which was obnoxious. But is anyone else with me on this? Does anyone else see this parallel, or am I totally making crap up here? Because the parallel I see is that we had this football program that was infested with the nastiest, most evil thing on earth, and that the power of the program, all predicated on winning, allowed this to go on. And now, in the name of winning in all of these other programs across the country, we are allowing coaches to just build this exact same cocoon. And in this case, it's stupid about place kickers' injuries and whether a left tackle is going to be ready to play or not. But it is much more symbiotic of the whole issue that these programs get so closed in that just about anything could go on behind the scenes and we would never know. And if you're winning, we'll let you do it. Let me know. Maybe you think I'm nuts. Okay, on a lighter note, here is something I love in the NFL. You can track it. It starts tonight. I like it more next week, but I love 0-1 home teams against 1-0 road teams. So I'm just going to go on the record with this. I like Green Bay tonight over Chicago. Okay? I like the Colts to surprise the Vikings. Minnesota's favored by 2 at Indianapolis. 0-1 home team, 1-0 road team. I like the Giants 0-1 to beat the Buccaneers pretty handily. That's close to a survivor pick right there. I like, in a surprise, keep an eye on the Jaguars getting the Texans, or at least covering the 8-point spread in a better game than you think. I like, don't be surprised if the Rams get the Redskins this week. 0-1 versus 1-0. I like the Steelers against the Jets. And I'm not sure I'm willing to go here, but I like the Seahawks against Dallas. It doesn't happen universally, but when you look at them, watch that trend. 0-1 home teams against 1-0 road teams. Often that is usually a pretty big surprise. And then next week it's the 0-2 versus 2-0. We all decide that those teams are both that way, and it goes that way forever. I apologize. It looks like YouTube crashed today, and I just don't have time to re-record that mess. So for those of you who just got a video, thank you. Missed it on video, thank you. It's probably good. I was floating all over the place trying to explain what I was thinking. I want to hear your thoughts. Ping me at Locked On Sports. Ping me at Locked On Sports on Facebook, and I will probably put up a Facebook discuss about my comments about college football on Locked On Sports Facebook. Thanks.